It's been almost 3 months since the Galaxy S22 series hit shelves and online stores across the globe, and having lived with the S22 Plus since that time, just what have we learned and what are the pitfalls and positives on the middle device in the S22 lineup? Well, let's find out together. Thanks for watching 9to5 Google here on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe and then tap the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. Samsung has clearly refined and owned the Galaxy lineup to such an extent that it's simply hard to fault the fit and finish of any recent Samsung flagship device from the firm. The Galaxy S22 Plus is absolutely no exception either. Sure, it looks very familiar to its predecessor, but given that the S21 was such a unique device in its own right, the refinements result in an even better overall design. I don't completely like flat sides on a phone, so while the Galaxy S22 Plus does have sharper corners than any previous S series flagship, the slight curvature is a welcome reprieve from that digging feeling that I find incredibly uncomfortable when holding the likes of the iPhone with completely flat and sharp sides. It is a slightly minor change that I think makes a big difference and has ensured that I haven't felt any actual pain in the long-term period that I have used the Galaxy S22 Plus for the purposes of this long-term review. That's really a big deal given that this is still a big phone in the traditional sense. That said, Samsung has maximised space usage on this tall chassis to great effect. There's a reassuring heft that is somewhat confusing given that the Galaxy S22 Plus is quite a svelte piece of hardware. I'm often using it with a case, but the pink gold colour is so striking that I opted to pick up a clear option simply to admire the soft hues that are sorely lacking in many flagship phones out there. Kudos to Samsung for offering up some really delectable colour options this year yet again, and I think you will have a lot of fun picking out an option to suit you best. While I would ordinarily be disappointed that this nearly $1,000 phone doesn't ship with a QHD Plus display, because I actually tend to set down the resolution to Full HD Plus to conserve battery, I think it is a fine compromise when this screen looks so darn good. The uniform bezels are a particular highlight and something that I have missed since ditching the Pixel 5 some 8 months ago. The fact that this is completely flat on top of that is yet another huge bonus here, and it's simply the best screen on Android, at least as far as I'm concerned. At 6.6 inches and really with just a tiny bit of bezel on show, it is a true edge-to-edge experience that elevates all content above much of the competition. Throw in that super slick 120Hz refresh rate, and I must say, I often find it hard to switch over to other review units as the Galaxy S22 Plus display really has spoiled me so much since launch. On top of that, sunny days are, well, they're not something we see all that often here in the UK, but even if the weather threatens a good time, the Galaxy S22 Plus display handles even direct sunlight with aplomb. There's also that new extra brightness feature that comes pre-installed on the One UI build that it comes on the S22 Plus, and that is especially handy when trying to view on-screen content even in direct sunlight. Pairing that exquisite display with similarly excellent speakers is a recipe for on-the-go entertainment that very few smartphones can match. Rather than connect directly to my Nest Hub or another smart speaker, what I'll do is I'll often just set my volume to the max level and listen to podcasts or stream music from Tidal when I'm reading or cooking, and I think it's something I wouldn't ordinarily do with other devices, such are the speakers on offer here. On top of that, the super fast fingerprint scanner and the crisp haptics are just another set of reasons that I love interacting with the Galaxy S22 on a daily basis. We can't talk about the software and not mention One UI, as it's come a long way over the past few years, and it's certainly what I'd consider a great alternative to Google's vision of Android. I'm not completely converted, as I still like to use a third-party launcher for the home screen, but I can easily see why millions of people around the globe do love Samsung's software flavour, having used the S22 Plus for a long period of time right now. One UI 4.1 is stuffed full of little extras that I genuinely will miss when switching back to my trusty Pixel 6, including the awesome smart widgets that stack atop of one another and save me the need for multiple home screens dedicated to tracking weather, my calendars and more, just using on-screen widgets. I've also really liked returning to simple quick settings toggles for things like Wi-Fi connections in One UI 4.1. Just tapping once to enable or disable Wi-Fi was something I found incredibly frustrating with the Pixel version of Android 12, which has that annoying floating pop-up that requires a couple of presses to do the same. Hopefully Samsung sticks with this method with One UI 5.0, as it really is great for usability and accessibility on the go. On top of that, each and every month receiving a prompt OTA notification informing that the latest security patch is available is also something that I'll never truly tire of. That said, Samsung's installation process still needs some serious work, as yet again there are no seamless updates with the S22 series, and sometimes while you could argue that waiting an hour for an update to process on the Pixel series is annoying, it's still less annoying than having to decommission your device for 20 minutes while the update installs, only for it to restart so you can use it again. The only potential gripe I've had is in the usage of the Exynos 2200 in my European variant of the S22 Plus. Sure, it's fine for everyday usage, texting, calling, that kind of thing, but there are some noticeable performance dips compared to directly to devices like the OnePlus 10 Pro, which comes with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 when doing things like gaming. And that's even with the supposedly ray tracing capable Eclipse 920 GPU tucked neatly inside the Exynos model. Even after using the phone for a few months, there are practically zero games supporting the feature and that GPU, and marginally lower frame rates on this device mean it is a slight step behind, especially when it comes to gaming. Everywhere else though, it's super slick and smooth, and given that the Exynos 2200 actually ranks higher than the Tensor chip in the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro, I'm actually not worried about day-to-day performance, even though it would have been nice to have got the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 model for a little bit of that extra under the hood grunt. On top of that, if I were to hold on to the Galaxy S22 into the long term, talking 3 or 4 years, then features like the RAM Plus is certainly something that I think would help longevity, but currently 8GB of RAM has been more than enough to keep my device ticking over nicely. It's worth noting in the camera stakes, the Galaxy S22 Plus shares a lot in common with the Pixel 6 Pro's camera setup, but I haven't been quite as happy with as I have with Google's latest flagship, at least in the stills department. That's not to say that the S22 Plus camera capabilities are inferior, because that's simply not true. It stacks up well with the best in the business, and at least in terms of functions and features available, it actually far outstrips the Pixel 6 series. Every photo that you'll take will look sharp and detailed for the most part. There is a slight punch that has been toned down to the colours as well in recent years, and I love how vivid images look without wandering into the realm of technicolor nightmare, an older trait that lured me away from the Samsung phone series originally. The biggest downside for me though is that sometimes you get shutter lag, and this is the biggest sore point of the S22 Plus and makes it not exactly reliable in every situation. Unless you truly stand still all of the time, you can introduce the risk of blurry end results. And this isn't a problem most of the time, but it can be frustrating, especially when I've become accustomed to Google's point and click and kind of point and done camera approach. It's just also a little more frustrating as focusing, in most cases, with this phone is genuinely fast and accurate. I will say that Samsung's portrait mode could very well be the best on any phone to date, especially phones that I've used. The edge detection has improved substantially to the point that I think I prefer it over the Pixel 6 with its more software-driven approach when adding fake bokeh. You can actually tune down the blur amount to the point that it looks really natural in a way that I think other cameras really do tend to stumble with. The only major criticism for the Galaxy S22 setup, at least for me, has been the somewhat lacking telephoto zoom lens though. It's a 3x optical zoom lens, and for the most part it's fine, but it's not a true periscope zoom, and that means that while it is good enough for minor crops, you will start to notice some quite substantial drops in detail when zooming past 5x. I'm not actually sure why Samsung didn't put a periscope zoom lens into this device to better compete with the likes of the Pixel 6 Pro, as it probably wouldn't have added a huge premium either. Of course, lifespan is an area that can make or break a smartphone, and although the Galaxy S22 Plus hasn't been quite a battery beast, it's, at least in my experience, a dependable companion even when pushed beyond my usual usage patterns. Sure, at 4,500 mAh it has taken a jump down over the S21 Plus, and it isn't the biggest internal cell, but whether it's the slightly lower res Full HD Plus display or Samsung's ability to do more with less here, it manages admirably, at least it has in my experience. One big frustration though is that due to the lack of an in-the-box charger, I've simply started using other device accessories, including Google's 30-watt USB-C charger, and in my experience that tops up the phone when it's hitting that 10 to 15% ratio at around 2 hours or so. That's of course going to be annoying for some of you out there But what's more annoying is that the 45-watt charger that will give you that peak 45-watt speed is absolutely extortionate at a further $50 on top of what is a nearly $1,000 smartphone. So wrapping this entire long-term look back at the S22 Plus up, in my opinion, I think the only major weakness with the Galaxy S22 Plus when compared with some other flagship level smartphones is the seemingly inflated asking price. And what I mean is that because it sits below the Galaxy S22 Ultra, it may first appear like a huge step down, when in actual fact, it's actually not all that different to its bigger brother. The Pixel 6 Pro is a fantastic alternative to the S22 Plus, but for an extra $100 on the base price of Google's current latest flagship, you're actually getting a far better update promise and what you could argue is a more reliable everyday companion, especially given Google's software woes of late. Due to those factors, Samsung's middle smartphone in the lineup is probably going to be the one that I think most people out there should consider. As I've mentioned, it does not feel that far behind the S22 Ultra and even has a few benefits like a flat screen, truly flat screen that is, and an overall more pocketable and usable size. Given that the Ultra is all but a Galaxy Note in name, this feels to me more like the true S22 model in most ways. For most people, that might be enough to look the way of the Galaxy S22 Plus, and if there's one thing you take away from this long-term review of this device, it should be this. Should you want what amounts to a solid smartphone with updates on top of that will last upwards of 4 or so years, then I think this is the one you should be looking at picking up. Of course though, I want to know from you, have you bought the S22 Plus or one of the other S22 series devices? How are they treating you? Are they treating you well or are you experiencing problems? Be sure to let me know your life experience with these devices down in the comment sections below. But this is Damien with 95 Google saying thanks for watching and I will speak to you later.